You've lived your whole life being mute and deaf, and on top of it, you're pathetically weak. And now you're going to be forced to go to the depths of hell in order to save a kingdom that doesn't want you to become the one true king. I'm going to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the magical hell army in Ranking of Kings. This kid will be forced to watch his entire kingdom crumble. Boji here is the prince of the powerful boss kingdom, one of the strongest kingdoms in the land, led by Boji's father, this powerful giant king boss. Born mute, deaf, and weak, Boji is the black sheep of his family, to say the least, and is considered a joke within his kingdom. No one believes that he has what it takes to become king, but it's this belief that will cost them everything. He goes out one day to play, but bumps into a mysterious thief passing by him. It stops Boji and threatens him for money, and then the creature realizes that this kid is deaf, but can understand him by reading his lips, not having any money. The creature threatens Boji for expensive clothes, and tells him to come back tomorrow to bring more. Strangely enough, Boji smiles and happily agrees. Over the next several days, Boji comes back again and again to meet with the thief and give him expensive clothes, and eventually the thief introduces himself as Kage. Deciding to follow Boji back to his kingdom one day, he sees everyone making fun of the prince, including the palace guards. Boji then runs into his stepmother, Queen Healing. She gets pissed off at him for being naked and showing his crown jewels, and complains in front of everyone that he has no right to be king. She thinks his younger brother is more suitable and less stupid. Boji then becomes sad, and one of the queen's entourage, Damas, tells Boji that the powerful king wants to speak with him. He goes to his room to change clothes, and Kage follows him. In there, he finally sees Boji's strong smile flip into sadness and shame. Boji then runs out of the room to meet his father, the king. Kage tries to follow him, but gets lost, and runs into the man who will soon torture him. Biban is shocked to see Kage's kind here, and demands to know what he's doing in the castle. Kage's family belongs to a group of assassins, and he threatens to kill Kage unless he confesses who he's planning to kill right now. Kage panics and tells him that he's just there chilling with the prince, nothing to see here, but Lord Biban doesn't believe him and sharpens his blade. This is awful, and now we're in trouble, and we didn't do anything. This is why, to get away without any violence, I think we might have to cut sweet little Boji's ear off. Let me explain. Kage is a part of an ancient clan of assassins, which means he stuck out like a sore thumb already, and how he acted was dumb as hell. However, he does have a ton of powers that we could use to get what we really want. Cash money. What? Money solves everything. If I was Kage, I wouldn't have been an idiot, and I would have realized that sneaking into a fortified castle, which usually has around 2,000 soldiers, would have been risky as hell. It's a miracle he got to Boji's room without being discovered, but it also tells us that security is not exactly the greatest in this castle, cause he snuck right in. Once entering the prince's room, I would have stayed until nightfall. Part of Kage's powers descends from assassins, and he's freaking tiny, and he's able to blend in and hide within the shadows. That is a useful skill. And castles are dark and natural as hell, and there's a shit ton of shadows and places that he can hide in. In terms of securing the bag, trying to steal the castle's crown jewels would not have worked, since that would have been under strict security, or at least you would hope. But the thing that we could steal is more of their expensive royal clothing that lies around. Modern day fabrics, if rare enough, have the ability to be worth more than gold. For example, a suit made of Vicuna wool, the most expensive fabric in the world, would cost around $50,000 minimum. And back in the old times, expensive fabric like these would have been even more expensive. This is why it would actually make more sense to steal their clothing instead of the jewels that belong to the royal family. Before leaving Prince Boji's room at night, when he was sleeping, I would have grabbed one of his sweet dolls that children usually have, and would have used it to club this kid's head in. Think of it like clubbing a baby seal. This would sort of act as sort of a natural painkiller for the poor kid, in order for him to avoid feeling what we're about to put him through. After that, I would then sneak out and head to the seamstress and tailor rooms, where all of the royal fabric would have been stored. After he gathers all of it within his body, which is a part of his powers, he'll be able to sneak away because it's at night, and doing all of this in the night would allow us to hide in the shadows. And on the off chance we do get caught, we could have revealed to them the prince's cut ear, and could have bluffed that we kidnapped him. The shock from the ear would have bought us enough time to escape before they would have figured out that we were bluffing, and cutting Boji's ear off wouldn't have done anything to him anyways because, as I said, he's deaf. Plus it would have gotten him sympathy points from the ladies growing up, which means really he should have thanked us in the long run, because chicks love scars. It's a win-win. Kage quickly distracts him and disappears into the shadows, but he's not going to get away that easily, as Biban sends out his army of poisonous snakes to go after him. Meanwhile, Boji enters his father's room, a legendary king who single-handedly single-handedly saved this village from thousands of monsters. He coughs up blood and gives Boji shit for letting thieves steal his clothes. He tells Domas, the best swordsman in the kingdom, to train Boji to make him fit enough to be the future king. And he tells Boji to train hard so he can be like his younger brother. Domas takes Boji out to train but sees how weak he really is, and it's pathetic. And just then, Boji's brother, that little snake, Prince Daida, passes by and challenges Domas to a fight. The two battle it out. Domas gets shocked at the prince's surprising skills, telling him that he's gotten better, but Prince Daida gets mad that he didn't win and gets mad at Domas. Then Boji steps in front of Domas to challenge his brother, and the two prepare to duke it out, and a crowd gathers around them, including Kage nearby. Prince Daida charges at Boji, but is stunned at how good his reflexes are, and he dodges every freaking attack of Daida with ease, and even manages to land hit after hit, shocking the village. But gradually, people begin to get annoyed with Prince Boji, because all he does is avoid and keeps hitting on poor Daida, and everyone starts to think that this fight is too one-sided, all because Boji is so weak. After the continual humiliation of Daida, Domas then steps in and tells Boji that his moves are not very king-like, and that he should take the hits head-on like a man. Confused, Boji ends up getting very quickly defeated by Prince Daida, but he doesn't stop and beats the living crap out of him until Boji falls to the floor, and suddenly the fight is halted by this man's spear, a legendary bodyguard named Apis, a man a lot more important to this kingdom's future than anyone realizes. With the fight over, Prince Daida happily goes frolicking back to his room, that little shit, and he tells his magic mirror that her prophecy is coming true. Meanwhile, Boji's body and his shame get carried into this room, where he gets his wounds treated. Kage finds him and sees how pathetic the prince is. He watches Boji unable to pick up a sword, and he begins to break down crying. Kage's eyes light up with sadness, and he goes up to Boji, telling him that he shouldn't be ashamed of who he is, because he's amazing. He shouldn't care what people say. Boji then offers Kage some more of his expensive clothes, but Kage tells him he doesn't want anything from him anymore, and from now on he will stay by Boji's side no matter what happens. And the two lonely heroes become best friends. Blah 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 blah. Kage prepares to leave the room, and he tells Boji that he'll be back to check on him tomorrow, but then he runs into his new mortal enemy, Lord Beeman, and he corners him with snakes and quickly kidnaps him. The next day arrives, and the kingdom is dealt with the worst news of all. Powerful King Boss has just died. Everyone holds their breath as they read his official will and find out the worst news of all. The dead king wants Boji to become the new king, shocking everyone here. Why would he do this? It's a horrible decision. And then suddenly a terrifying devil comes out of the king's corpse and towers over them with sinister intent. And then it points to little Boji and begins to chuckle like a psycho, and then it disappears. Prince Daida runs back into his room and complains to his magic mirror, but the magic mirror says that he will still be king, and she starts up her evil plans. The next day, the crowning ceremony begins, and the rumors have already spread that the dead king wants Boji to be king, as everybody waits for the inevitable to happen. But then there's a change of plans. The royal family has decided on their own that Prince Daida should be the new king instead, and announce it to everybody. This stuns Boji, as he finds out thanks to the devil that he saw yesterday. His stepmother, Queen Healing, thinks King's boss's will cannot be trusted because she let her inner court decide and get to vote on the new king instead. Damas votes for Prince Daida, and this causes Boji to run out of the castle in sadness. Alright, this just took a turn for the worst. I'm gonna have to kill the brother. Let me explain. This situation is more than just about royalty, because in this world, kingdoms are ranked by power level, and the most powerful kings get a ton of treasure. And this means that even though our king is already dead, the stakes aren't over yet, because he needs to make sure that the overall integrity of the kingdom sides with him and is able to continue on to the next king without any inner conflict among his people. Because if that happens, then the kingdom's overall ranking will go down. Now getting to my first point where we have to kill the brother. Us being just alive poses a direct threat to our younger brother's future power, and also since the people of the kingdom could one day side with us to fight against Prince Daida. And if you think about it, throughout history, there's been plenty of royal siblings that have murdered each other for the crown, and it seems to be no different that history will repeat itself again. And if we think about the psychology of King Daida's character, he's been groomed since birth by our overprotective mother in the hopes that he would be able to take care of us, Prince Boji, and also because everybody thinks that we're useless. This, combined with his hunger to be the #1 ranked king, and his attitude towards us as we've seen, likely means he thinks we're a huge nuisance to him and a liability, and will probably do anything it takes to get rid of us. And this means that we need to strike first. Now, with all of this this taken into account, it makes sense that we kill our younger brother. It really does, because we just saw a devil come out of our daddy's corpse. It's very possible that we would be able to blame the death of our younger brother on some kind of curse or evil demon. This is why I would go to see my younger brother at some point over the next day and attempt to murder him in his room. We could use anything really. Anything that's small enough in diameter, which means we will be able to puncture his throat very easily. Even with our Prince Boji level of strength, which is pathetic. Also, the fact is that Kage is within the kingdom, and worst case, we could easily blame all of this on him. After all, he loves us. We gave him all the royal clothes in the world that he could want, which means we can use him to put the blame all on Kage. Meanwhile, Kage continues to be tortured, but he's had enough of this, and then severs his own body in order to escape. Running out, he thinks he's free, but then runs into his worst nightmare all over again, and he gets cornered by more poisonous snakes. And Biben steps out from the shadows and asks Kage one more time why he's really here, and this time, no lies. And it's then Kage swears that he's here just because he's best bros with the prince and is there to help him. And then Biben goes to find Prince Boji and tells him that his friend Kage has gone off on a journey and will never come back. Boji is devastated and is about to have a mental breakdown, but then he thinks fast and realizes that since Kage promised him that he would never leave, he must still be with Lord Biben somewhere in the castle. Elsewhere, Lord Biben gets sent to meet the new king, Daida, who tells him that now that he is king, he must prepare for the royal ranking ceremony. In this world, kings are ranked by their power, by a mysterious organization claiming to represent the gods. If King Daida wants to be the most powerful king in all of the land, he must make him and his kingdom strong by killing all those who oppress his rule, including anyone who didn't vote for him to be king thanks to his magic mirror. King Daida tells Biben that he knows who didn't vote for him and orders him to assassinate all of his unloyal followers. Biben worries that the magic mirror is beginning to have too much influence on King Daida. But what does he do? He carries out his order without question. Meanwhile, Boji explores the castle and goes to meet one of Biben's pets, this giant snake. And the snake reveals that his master has captured Kage, but he can't reveal anything else. Boji looks at him with too much cuteness and manages to convince the snake to reveal a little bit more information. Ah, that little adorable shit. Lord Biben sent Kage on an important mission, but that's all he knows. Hearing the same news again, Biben gets sad and depressed, but the giant snake tells him to stay strong and that there are many people in the kingdom who do admire him. Nearby, Biben goes outside of the castle walls to try and take down one of King Daida's unloyal followers, the legendary spearman known as Apis. The two quickly clash swords and combine decades of battle-hardened skill against each other, but Apis manages to stab Biben and win the battle. Apis tells a dying Biben that he will make Boji king no matter what. Back in the castle, King Daida deals with his mother, Queen Healing, and tells her that he fired all of those who disagreed with him and asks if Boji can go off somewhere so he can be taken care of somewhere else. Queen gets shocked, but thinks fast and tells King Daida not to worry about these small issues and tells him to focus on ruling the kingdom instead, and in doing this, she manages to keep him off of Boji's ass for now. Later, Boji decides to leave the castle and like a good stepson asks his stepmother if he can go on an adventure, and she says it's too dangerous, but Boji decides to do it anyways. Realizing that the guards won't let him leave from the front, he decides to sneak out the back through the window and begins tying bedsheet after bedsheet together, and he prepares to scale down from this terrifying height. But then his stepmother enters the room and rushes over to go get him, and Boji squirms while hanging on to his makeshift rope. But all that squirming causes the rope to loosen, and Boji comes crashing down hard, saved by his bag. The stepmother rushes over to help him, but discovers that he's critically injured, and she puts her hands together and uses her magic to save him from the brink of death. Boji then comes back to life, just as his stepmother passes out from using too much energy. And all the while, no one realizes that King Daida watched all of this from a distance. A few hours later, the stepmother realizes that she's been too hard on Boji ever since his younger brother was born, and reluctantly decides to let Boji go on his adventure, but tells him that Domas and this man, Hokaru, will go with him. Since they both know sign language, she warns them that they are only allowed to go to her hometown, and Boji gets super happy and plants a kiss on his mother. Watching him leave, she suddenly gets a strange feeling that she will never see him again. Meanwhile, King Daida gets word that the most important day of his life has finally arrived. A judge from the King's Ranking Association has arrived to determine King Daida's ranking. The king with the first ranking will be able to pick one item from the Divine Treasure Vault. His magic mirror tells him that in order to have have any chance of ranking as the first king, he must murder his brother Boji, slightly shocking King Daida. She reveals that she has already made plans to have his little brother assassinated, because one day the people may vote for him to rule. Sad for his little brother, but obsessed with power, King Daida agrees. She tells him that all he needs to do is to now obtain his father's powers from his body, in order to become strong enough to come first in the upcoming ranking exam. But King Daida gets annoyed and insulted, and tells her that he can achieve greatness with his own power. But the magic mirror insists that she's right, but he doesn't listen to her. King Daida prepares for the first ranking test, and duels against this powerful creature, but he ends up sucking balls so bad, and gets told by the judge that his king ranking has now dropped to 90th place. If he doesn't improve soon, he will be the worst ranked king of them all. Meanwhile, Boji and his guards continue to travel through the dangerous wildlands, and they reach this small town, but Boji ends up getting lost and distracted, how typical, by taking a nap near this fountain. When he wakes up, he gets discovered by worried Hokaru, and they discover that Boji has had his bag stolen. They inform Domas of the bad news, and he gets mad at Hokaru, telling him that the queen had left a letter in Boji's bag to be delivered to her parents. Domas then suspiciously asks Hokaru if he'll obey orders when the time comes. He doesn't understand what Domas means, and he gets told off by him, and mentions that it's not up to them to question what the royals do, whether it's right or wrong. But Hokaru doesn't realize that Boji is in terrible danger. The next day, they leave this town, but come across Boji's missing bag. It's strange, but the crew keeps on going, avoiding all sorts of dangerous monsters and traps, except this one. Boji falls into this hole and quickly avoids getting stabbed alive. Unable to escape, he heads down this cave to find a way out, and comes across this stranger, and this man is on some crazy shit. And he asks Boji to join him to perform a dancing ritual with him, and then they proceed to shake it off. And after that, the man feeds Boji some food and begins to talk about how ruthless nature really is. And in order to survive, others must die. And then he starts eyeballing Boji to have him sacrificed to the gods, but Boji quickly gets the hell out of there, jumping down this cliff, and he finally finds a worried Domas and Hokaru. Domas then leads them to this open area where they make camp for the night, and he whips out some food for them to eat. Boji's about to dig in when suddenly he gets hit with throwing knives. The gang, now on high alert, realize that that piece of meat saved Boji's life, and then he watches some cute animals come to steal the meat away, and he realizes that those knives belong to Lord Beeben. The next day, the three wake up, and Boji and Hokaru are horrified to see that the cute animals that they saw earlier have died from swallowing their nasty meat, and they realize that the meat that they were about to eat last night must have been poisoned. The nervous group quickly gets back on the road, but gets warned by Domas that the next town they pass will force them to go near the gates to the underworld, which means that they must be careful. Domas then mentions that the town maintains its prosperity by capturing demons who try to escape from hell and use their most powerful knights, known as the Order of the Underworld. Reaching this famous town, Domas tells Hokaru to go find them a place to stay while he babysits Boji. Hokaru agrees and tells him that he'll meet back up with them later. But that was his biggest mistake. Domas then lures Boji to go see the gates of hell with him, and he tells Boji, go take a closer look. And that's when he realizes that he's been murdered. I know the betrayal was insane, but kind of predictable, and he kind of deserved it. Hear me out, let me explain. Listen, Boji is a pure, good, innocent character, but the problem is, he's too pure, he's too nice, he's too naive, and he's mute and deaf, and only a few people can communicate with him, and Domas was one of them, which, if you think about it, explains why he was such a bad teacher. And on top of that, we should have spotted the red flags in advance, because Boji hasn't learned shit from him all these years, because Domas has refused to change his teaching ways, refused to encourage this new style that Boji discovered that actually allowed him to succeed for once. And that's why I think over the years, there was built up resentment over Boji's inability to develop the physical strength to actually fight the way that Domas wanted him to. And that probably created the frustration and guilt over the years and made him more cold and distant towards Boji. And also this, remember back to when he talked to Hokaru about following orders blindly and ignoring your moral compass? Like, where did that come from? And this means that it was clear way in advance that Domas had given up on Boji because, well, he was pathetic for too long. Domas was unable to teach him anything. And the closer he got to Boji, the more he started to view him as a stray dog, as something pathetic, as something irritating, a burden that he had to deal with. So when he finally was given the opportunity to relieve himself of his frustrations, he took it. And unfortunately, Boji should never have been so naive. falling down into the portal to hell. Boji disappears into the hellfires, and Damas starts walking back, then begins to laugh, and then cry, and begs Prince Boji's spirit to forgive him. He walks back, but runs into Hokaru. Now worried, he asks where Boji is, but quickly realizes that Damas has done something terrible to him. Damas tells him that it was his duty to kill Prince Boji. Hokaru gets enraged and attacks him in anger, but easily gets blocked by Damas, who calls him a fool. Damas sees the pain in Hokaru's eyes and quickly feels bad, so he lets Hokaru cut his hand before knocking him out. Regretting his decisions, he cuts off his hand in shame. Later, Hokaru wakes up and gets told by Damas that King Daida ordered him to kill Prince Boji and that he had no choice. And being such a goody two-shoes, Hokaru wants to report this to the queen, but Damas tells him that she doesn't know what King Daida did, and if either of them go back, they will be straight up killed, and possibly the queen as well. But Hokaru stays stubborn and says that he's going back no matter what. Back at the castle, King Daida has a dream of his big brother saving him, as spirits all around him tell him that Prince Boji will save the kingdom. Suddenly wakes up, he realizes that he just had a dream and becomes furious. He calls out to the magic mirror and tells her what she wants to hear, that he wants to obtain his father's strength, and the magic mirror smiles. Elsewhere, he wakes up at the bottom of this hole. It's Boji, and he's alive! He sits in shock and realizes that someone saved him. Kage! They suddenly both cry in stupid levels of happiness, and Kage reveals that Lord Biban assigned him to be Boji's secret bodyguard. And he's the one who saved Boji from eating the poisonous meat last night. Sensing that something was wrong with it, Kage reveals that Biban gave him a letter to the leader of this underworld. But he doesn't know who's trying to have Boji killed, which means that they must be on alert. Kage tells him that according to Biban, someone deep within the underworld can make Boji stronger, so they must go there as soon as possible. But then Boji smells something weird, and they realize it's poisonous gas. They try to escape, but quickly pass out while someone approaches them. Back at the castle, King Daida goes deep into the kingdom basement, along with the magic mirror. And then he sees two creepy people down there waiting for him, and he gets nervous. But the magic mirror says that these were King Boss's loyal servants, and they will help him gain power just like his father. Entering this chamber, he passes by dozens of frozen monsters, along with his father's corpse, and she reveals that they had him frozen right after he died, and they will now use his corpse to make King Daida powerful. Without being able to get a word in, King Daida watches his father fall into a giant medieval blender and gets diced up into liquid form. Adding some other ingredients into this liquid, the magic mirror tells King Daida that he must now drink this liquid, because this will make him obtain his father's strength. He starts to have second thoughts and mentions that he should just work harder to get stronger, but the magic mirror says that the stakes are too high. She pressures him even harder, but King Daida gets angry and changes his mind and states that he won't do it, but she tells him that he has no choice. And the two guards try to catch him, but King Daida quickly uses his sick moves and manages to knock them down. He tells the magic mirror that he wants to be the #1 ranked king by himself, with no help. But that's when Appius suddenly enters the room with speed and precision, nearly killing King Daida, but the magic mirror stops him, telling him that she needs him. Appius's eyes light up at the sound of the magic mirror's voice and recognizes it. It's Lady Miranjo. He tells her that he's here to make Prince Boji the new king, according to King Boss's dying wish, to fulfill his will. But Lady Miranjo reveals that she needs King Daida for her plans, and whispers something into Appius's ear, and it shocks him. King Daida watches in horror as his attitude suddenly changes, and he quickly knocks this kid out. Minutes later, King Daida wakes up and is horrified. He's been tied up, and he's forced to witness Lady Miranjo force-feed him the potion while she chuckles evilly. She then reveals her true plans, and she tells King Daida that he's simply a vessel, and that she's on a mission to bring back the true king of the land. Years ago, Boss made a deal with the devil in order to gain incredible strength, but the devil borrowed the strength of King Boss's future bloodline in order to make King Boss's wish come true. And that is the reason that Boji was born weak, because he had his power stolen from him by his own father. And now Lady Miranjo plans to use Daida's body to bring the true King Boss back from the dead. This is why I would have tried to seduce the very same lady who used to babysit us like we were in one of those type of videos. Let me explain. King Daida, up until now, never bothered to look into the crazy signs that him and his family were all going to die. Listen, if I was him, would not have brushed off over our daddy's death, because if we remember, a freaking devil came out of his body, and somehow nobody bothered to question that? The moment a devil is involved, usually it involves wanting youth, power, fame, or status, and the fact that our daddy, a royal king, was somehow involved with a devil? This should have been a huge worry from everybody from day one. And clearly this was made very obvious that something weird was going on. But even if we didn't know that, the real problem is Lady Miranjo. She was given to us as a gift by our daddy when we were young, and she basically watched over us growing up, which explains why we were so close, and maybe a little too close. Moving on. Now, the most obvious sign that something sinister was going on was Lady Miranjo's eagerness to help us to become king, because she was like way too helpful. Because yeah, while Boji may be a little weakling, it's obvious that we had no friends, and this made it difficult for us to gain outside perspective on how suspicious this Lady Miranjo was acting the whole time. The lack of people that weren't sucking up to him all the time was King Daida's biggest weakness, because even if he didn't have friends, it makes no sense that he would have never looked into finding out who Lady Miranjo was. He just naively trusted her, like a freaking fairy godmother from one of those movies. Because look, my weebs, if I grew up with a best friend, it's only natural that I would have wanted to ask questions about their life and discover who they are, because I'm curious, I like this person, I want to know more about them. And yeah, sure, she could have lied to him. I mean, he could have also asked his dad this whole time, or thousands of other people in the kingdom, about who Lady Miranjo was, or how King Boss came to possess her. The tale of how King Boss was obsessed with power and how he ran into Lady Miranjo is not a secret. It's really not. So that means it could have easily come up at some point if Daida had just bothered to ask some questions, especially from the people that he surrounded himself with. Listen, at this point, we need to use the only move that we got, and we need to try to flirt or do something in order to convince our glorified babysitter. We need to tell her that we'll do whatever she wants. Then, on the off chance that she lowers her guard, we then could have used that to try to escape. King Daida panics and screams, but suddenly starts convulsing as the potion takes effect, and he now wakes up a changed man. Meanwhile, deep down in the underworld, the mysterious soldier drops Boji and Kage into this room. They wonder why they didn't die in the cursed gas, and then they discover that these two are already cursed. This soldier informs the king that Boji is a giant that got his strength stolen from him, and Kage is from the Shadow Clan, and he had his appearance altered by God. Once the two finally wake up, this king here tells Boji that he knows who he really is. He tells Boji that he knows their kingdom is going through some, well, shit. Kage tells him that Lord Biban told him that the king down here could help turn any weak person into a proper king, but Kage can't remember his name. The king laughs at them and introduces himself as Desher, king of the underworld, second ranking of kings. This king tells him that he first needs to know Boji's power level before he trains him by fighting one of his powerful warriors, the captain of the Order to the Underworld. Boji happily accepts the challenge, and Kage nervously sweats because he remembered what happened last time when Boji tried to fight somebody. Didn't work out so great, so Boji makes the first attack, but barely does anything. It's pathetic. This knight gets really confused, but Kage quickly interjects and says, hey, he's really good at dodging. And without another word, this warrior quickly attacks Boji with all of his might, and that's when they see Boji's true power. Boji dodges every move with incredible speed. Everybody is shocked except King Desher, who says it's impossible to help him without him having any strength at all, and declares that Boji has no talent. Kage begs him to reconsider and shows him the letter from Lord Biban, personally declaring that King Desher could help them. This king takes one quick look at the letter and laughs. He asks them if they read the letter, but Kage says no. King Desher then rolls his eyes and kicks them out of the castle. Boji then begins to realize his worthlessness and begins to cry, making Kage cry. But just then, one of the soldiers gives them their letter and tells them that, according to this letter, the man that they are looking for isn't this king, but this king's younger, way hotter brother, Lord Desper. The knight tells him that this man is very wise and will be able to help him, and then they bump paws with Kage and then wish him good luck, and then they go to head off to find him. Reaching his house, they meet pretty boy Desper and give him Lord Biban's letter about Boji. Desper tells him that while Boji may be weak, he possesses important qualities like courage, because that will be his edge. And then finally, Boji has a decent anime training arc that finally begins. He trains every day, while Kage waits outside and wonders if this man can really help Boji. And then one day he hears a loud eruption coming from Boji's training room. He rushes over to check on them and catches a glimpse of a weak Boji splitting a rock in half, shocking Kage. Back to the castle, Daida, now possessed by King Boss's spirit, sits on his throne. Lady Miranjo then reveals to him that because he already died, his wish has been used up, and now he is not the most strongest person in the world. The new strongest person is his son, Prince Boji, but King Boss doesn't react to the news. And then she drops another bomb and says that they have to assassinate Queen Healing, his wife, even shocking her evil entourage. But the king keeps his poker face and lets Lady Miranjo do whatever she wants. Nearby, Hokaru finally returns and delivers the terrible news to Queen Healing, telling her that her son Boji is dead, shocking and angering her. She sentences Hokaru to death. They strap him up and prepare to execute him. And just then Damas shows up. He's returned, carrying Hokaru. He tries to escape, but is stopped by King Daida. Daida, or so he thinks. Damas can tell King Daida seems different. He attacks Damas, and he recognizes that this fighting style is just like King Boss. King Daida tells everybody to calm down and announces that Prince Boji is not dead and is currently training in the underworld where he is safe. He then lets off Damas and Hokaru, but he tells them that they must leave this town right now. And before they go, he quickly whispers something into Damas's ear, and Lady Miranjo curiously tries to listen in from a distance. And Damas quickly leaves with Hokaru and reveals to him that King Boss is alive and has now possessed King Daida. He tells him that King Boss just now told him that there is an entrance leading into the underworld underneath this castle. They must go back there to destroy the demons living there or else. Damas and Hokaru then agree to work together. Meanwhile, Queen Healing suspects that her son looks different. King Daida then whispers again into this guy's ear, Drusi, and tells him to protect the queen because, well, shit's about to go down. And he reveals to the public that he's actually King Boss back from the dead. Well, how's that for honesty? And he uses his super strength to prove it. Queen Healing realizes now what's going on, desperately asks where the real son is, but King Boss doesn't know. She passes out in worry. Later, the queen is resting in her room, but her bodyguard tells everyone there that shit's about to go down, and he suddenly senses trouble outside. He exits the room and comes face to face with these demon dog assassins. They've been sent here to kill the queen. Right now, we're up against demon dogs that have come from the underworld, which means that these things are not to be messed with. And the fact that we are the only thing between us and the queen was really a dumb decision, considering how bad the situation is. Because up until now, a certified demon came out of your ex-dead king, and oh, by the way, now he's back. So that's a problem. And now the real Daida is missing, and a little Boji is basically missing as well, which means that it was obvious even before this that it's maybe time to leave the castle. Like, for starters, the stupid queen and the royals here should have come up with a plan similar to how the real-life evacuation plan that the British royal family has. They developed one during the Cuban Missile Crisis. At the time, the threat of nuclear warfare, there were emergency plans developed to get the royals to safety, which involved a detachment of 1,300 officers. And the fact that King Boss here is one of the top kings ranked in the world means that he likely had enough money to set all of this up, or at least something similar. But him and even his wife were too stupid to prepare for the worst. I bet they don't even have a panic room. And now the fact is that we got these demon dogs that managed to show up right at the queen's door and avoided all 2,000 guards inside of this castle. And that means that someone either smuggled them in or they came from somewhere nearby, like, oh, I don't know, like the secret entrance? And this means that everything here is probably compromised. Preparing for battle, the demon dogs attack Drusi one by one and manage to damage his armor. He throws his shield at them but quickly gets disarmed. Cornered, he quickly rips off his armor and turns into a six-pack stud. Gosh, it's been a while since I've been able to use that nickname. Anyways, the demons attack him again and again and manage to make him bleed even more. He tries to punch one of them and slowly gets ripped apart by these monsters. Going into last stand mode, he turns full savage and cuts and slaughters everyone there, barely surviving, until he collapses from blood loss. A little bit later, Drusi wakes up and realizes that Queen Healing has saved his life and tells him that she now has a new mission. She will stand against King Boss and get her Daida back no matter what. Elsewhere, Lady Miranjo senses the assassination attempt has failed and tells King Boss that she must now go to the underworld to get more demons. King Boss tries to calm her down and tells her that she's beautiful, causing her to cry. Thank you. But she leaves anyways with her minions to recruit people down in the depths of hell, all the while as King Boss watches over the kingdom. And when the coast is clear, Queen Healing rushes over to talk to King Boss because she knows he was involved in her assassination and demands to know what Lady Miranjo's goal is and what he's done to King Daida. But King Boss says that he can't remember. She starts yelling out to Daida, and suddenly Daida hears her, having just woken up inside of King Boss. He thinks he's now imprisoned inside of his own body. Hearing his mother's voice calling out to him, she barely just manages to hear him, and she uses her sorcery to find the exact location and realizes that her son is inside of King Boss. Frantic, she tells Drusi to get Daida out of there, but no one else except her can hear Daida's voice. Out of options, she takes her knife out and prepares to kill the king in order to release her son, but is stopped by Drusi, who tells her that even if Daida is inside, she can't harm his physical body, and he knocks her out. King Boss calmly voices his concerns for his wife to Drusi. He tells him that next time, he won't be able to protect her if she acts out of line. And if she wants to stay alive, she must leave the kingdom now and wait for the right time to come back to take down Lady Miranjo. Drusi then carries her out as her and her most loyal followers escape the kingdom. Back in the underworld, Lord Desper announces to Kage that Boji has finally completed his hard training, and they prepare to celebrate with a feast. But Kage wonders how Boji is carrying a big sword when he is so weak. Boji then whips it out, and Kage gets concerned because his weapon is thin as hell. And Desper says that it's part of his new tactics for Boji to work with. Boji has no physical strength, so he has to make do with what he's got. And then Kage finally agrees not to doubt Desper any longer. longer. Meanwhile, back at the castle, Lord Beeben is alive, and he realizes that he was rescued by his giant pet snake. The snake fills him in on what's going on. Queen Healing's failed assassination attempt, and the magic mirror, Lady Miranja, is headed into the underworld. He also informs him that he can sense that Boji has gotten stronger. Beeben wonders if the snake's prophecy of Prince Boji will eventually come true, and if Prince Boji might just become the one true king. Back in the underworld, the three then hit up this restaurant to start their celebrations, but end up running into three thugs, and these gangsters then begin to make fun of Kage and Boji, but Desper tells them to keep their cool. And suddenly they make fun of Desper, and he loses his shit and smacks this one guy back. He tells them that they can make fun of his students, but never insult his gorgeous face. And then he gets into a brutal fist fight, all because he's too dang pretty. That's sad. Anyways, Boji thinks he has a plan and joins in too, but gets punched in the face. But then he quickly gets back up, revealing that there's actually some toughness behind that cuteness. And he goes at them. Desper tells Kage not to worry, and they watch Boji quickly land a single soft punch to this guy's chin. And nothing happens. Not, because that's when everything happens. Shocking Kage and the rest of the room, this man collapses and is knocked out cold. Boji quickly knocks them out all with his soft punches. Kage is blown away, and Desper reveals to him that Boji has been training to find the weaknesses in opponents because by taking advantage of their weak points, such as hitting them on the chin, causes the brain to get shaken and causes a concussion. And this gang member gets pissed off and takes out his sword. And Desper throws Boji his weapon. The gang charges at him, but Boji dodges all of the attacks and quickly disables his enemy, making him fall to the floor. And Kage thinks he's dead, but Desper tells him that because his sword is so freaking thin, it allows Boji to cut through the enemies without hitting any important organs. By hitting the weak points of his enemies, and then cutting off their circulation to their brain momentarily, which will cause them to pass out. So now Boji can now basically defeat any enemy he encounters without killing them, impressing the shit out of Kage, who thinks that Desper is now the GOAT. They leave the restaurant as Desper leaves to take care of some other business. Boji then reveals to Kage that he learned his quick dodging move from Lord Beeben's giant pet snake that he saved when he was younger. This snake is also the one who taught him how to read lips and to not rely on sight. Kage then tells Boji that Beeben warned him that there was a huge conspiracy going on in the kingdom, and he told Kage to protect him because of this. He asks Boji what their next move should be. Since he completed his training, Boji thinks that everyone he loved betrayed him, including his stepmother, the Queen Healing. So Kage tries to cheer him up a little bit because he's depressed and tells him to remember the good in the world and that they'll need courage to face the darkness ahead. And somehow this BS motivation crap actually gets Boji all hyped up. And so they take a quick 5-minute psycho break, and then he gets hyped up again for the next part of their adventure. And then the two finally decide what their next plans should be. They're gonna go back and save his kingdom and his people. But what do you guys think about the video? Let us know what you like about it and what you didn't like about it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. And as always, don't forget to check out our How to Beat playlist.